What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Monsters at Work. So Monsters at Work is the first ever series that's based on the Monsters Incorporated movies, which I haven't touched here on the channel just yet, but I'm a huge fan of. Love the original Monsters Incorporated, and also definitely a big fan of Monsters University, but I think the first one, without a doubt, is definitely the best one. And I remember going to see that movie in theaters as a kid. I remember the toys that were coming out with McDonald's meals back in the day, and I remember being incredibly excited when my sister and I got our hands on the VHS copy of the movie that came on a blue tape, because obviously it's supposed to be very much like Sully. And so yeah, going into this show, I was excited. I have a lot of nostalgia for Monsters Incorporated, those films in general. I love these characters, and when I heard that it was going to be a sequel series to the original film, I was definitely excited. Now I'm going to get into a little bit more of that element in just one second, but I do want to let you guys know that I will not be getting into spoilers of the actual specifics of the show, and I'm just going to kind of be a little bit just open about the show without jumping into those specifics. I didn't want to review this one week to week because I made a post, my community post, long ago. At this point, it feels like it's been so long, just a couple months ago, right when we were kind of like in the halfway point of Loki, pretty much just telling you guys that, hey, I'm considering stopping the weekly episodic reviews. And right now I'm watching, or at least I was watching, Monsters at Work, as well as Marvel's What If. And I just feel like those are good shows for me to kind of do a wrapped up series review at the end of the show, instead of actually doing an episode by episode review every week. It's a little bit time consuming. Those videos sadly don't get a lot of views, and ultimately I just wanted to be able to kind of sit back and enjoy some of these shows without having to feel like I'm creating a review in my head while watching them. So here we are to finally talk about Monsters at Work. There was 10 episodes in this first season. It's definitely something that could have a season 2, but they wrapped it up in a way where it could end right here. I'm pretty sure we will get a season 2. It hasn't been confirmed just yet, but yeah, overall, I can say that I enjoyed this show. I found it to be a cute, good time. It was definitely for a younger audience, but overall, I enjoyed it. This wasn't really a show that was deep with narrative and character arcs and all that jazz. It's very similar to a lot of other shows that have been based on some animated film that was popular that we would eventually get on Nickelodeon, something like The Barnyard, for instance, which I believe is what it was called, where we got a show based on that movie. It takes place after the events of those movies. Sometimes they may reference the events of said movie, but ultimately it's going to be its own thing. It's going to be its own fun adventure of the week kind of thing for a younger audience that has a through line throughout the story that you can follow if you are watching it from beginning to end. And so yeah, this show was definitely that kind of show. Ultimately, I found it to be a cute, good, fun time. I think this is definitely going to play a lot better with younger audiences, without a doubt, which makes sense. It is a animated show made for kids, based on a kids movie property. But I think that this show also did a good job of definitely having something in there for adults like myself who grew up with Monsters Incorporated, who have nostalgia. I also, as I was watching the final episode today, thought to myself how awesome it is that we're getting a sequel series to Monsters Incorporated today that adults like myself can watch. And for those adults that are my age that grew up with those original films, who are now being able to show that to their kids today, it's awesome that they're actually able to also watch this new series that's a sequel to that original film alongside their kids, being able to experience it together. So on that front, I really enjoy the fact that we're even getting anything like this. Now, overall, what I can say about the show, as I said before, is that it's a cute, good, fun time. I think it's going to play way better with kids than it is adults. It's very straightforward. If you guys are fans of Pixar movies, you know that those films do such a great job of being movies that are, accessible for adults and kids and everybody, and they usually have some deep message that in a lot of ways kids usually aren't going to pick up on as much as the adults. That's probably one of the best things about going to see a Pixar film compared to any other animated studios films, simply because you know that you're usually going to get a story that's rich with layers, characters, and a real life lesson that you can walk away from the movie with. They always do a great job with that, and even with some of their lesser titles that are not as strong, yeah, there's still usually some good message there that adults and kids can lean into. And so for me with this show, it's definitely far more for kids. This is definitely not as heavy-handed with a big message that you can take away from this, but I do enjoy the messages that are in this show, and I think they did a good job of having something that I think kids are not going to be able to tap into, that adults are going to be able to connect to a little bit more than the actual kids. And we're going to get into that in just one second. The basic premise of this show, I thought going in, was going to be predominantly on Mike and Sully, who are in this show a pretty decent amount of time. That once again played by John Goodman and Billy Crystal, which I thought was great. It was awesome to see Mike Wazowski and J.P. Sullivan, or just Sully as we all know him. It's just super awesome to see these two characters come back for a show with the original voice actors, and then also have other characters reprise their role in this movie, like Jennifer Tilly coming back to play Celia, who is Mike's girlfriend or fiance or whoever she is. Then you also have Bob Peterson coming back to play Roz, and there's a few other characters from the Monsters Incorporated movies that make an appearance here in this show and are played by the original actors. So on that level, definitely enjoyed it as a longtime fan of these movies and of these characters. I thought they did a good job of being able to jump right back into the action and make it feel like a genuine sequel to that original show. But going into it, I thought it was going to predominantly focus on Sully and Mike. But once the series was starting to get announced more, there were more trailers and posters, it was clear that this was going to focus on a new set of characters, and that's exactly what we end up getting here. The main character of the show is Tyler Tuskman, who's played by Ben Feldman, who's not an actor I'm super familiar with. I looked through his IMDb, and I do recognize him from the Friday the 13th remake, as well as Cloverfield from back in the day, and he has been in other things that I've seen, but I just didn't recognize him instantly, though he has one of those faces that I do recognize just from seeing in general. But yeah, Tyler Tuskman is our main character, and the basic gist of this character's journey is that he was going to Monsters University right before the events of the first movie to become a scarer. He wanted to work alongside people like Sully, who was the top scarer at the time, and they wanted to, be a scarer. So he goes to college and becomes a scarer, and already has his acceptance letter from Monsters University when Mr. Waternoose was still the boss, the villain and the boss from the first Monsters Incorporated film. And when he shows up, it's actually day one from when they've just swapped from Scream energy to Laugh energy. So now all this stuff that he's gone to college for, all this stuff that he's worked so hard to obtain, and this job that he thought he had in the bag is no longer what he thought it was going to be, and now he's being told that they're switching from scarers to jokesters. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of scarers start to lose their jobs or start to lose their way. Some of them are able to translate their talents into becoming jokesters, but a lot of them can't. And so, yeah, right out of the gate, what I really enjoy about this show is that they're definitely making a very real life commentary on the fact that a lot of people do go to college and they do think they're going to come right out of college, or maybe sometimes have things locked into place to have a job. And then, they get out of the college life and they go into the real world, and it's not what they expected. So in this case, Tyler is sent down to M.I.F.T, which is the Monsters Incorporated facilities team, and essentially they're the people who just fix stuff around. They're at the very, very bottom of the totem pole, and yeah, here he is thinking he's coming in to be one of the top dogs. He's been accepted as one of the top dogs, but he hasn't been able to prove himself as funny because he's been spending all his time in college trying to be scary. And so now he's coming in at the very, very bottom of this company, and he's not happy about it. And over the course of the episodes, we start to meet these characters that he's working alongside, who are part of M.I.F.T, part of this facilities team, and yeah, they start to build their relationships, and for the most part, every episode is a pretty silly, over-the-top, just adventure of the week kind of thing. But I think these episodes did do a good job of layering these characters over time and allowing us to really feel for them. By the time the final moments of this final episode were playing out, I found myself getting a little bit emotional and realized to myself, oh, I might, have been more attached to these characters over the course of the show than maybe I even realized myself. And ultimately, I think that the show does a good job of being a fun, entertaining show for kids. If you're a longtime fan of these shows and you enjoy animated stuff and stuff that's for kids today as an adult, I think this is definitely something that you can definitely enjoy. I think longtime Monsters Inc. fans will find something in here to enjoy. Now, one thing I definitely want to touch on as far as this being a sequel to the original movie is that the one thing I was hoping that we would see happen in the show, and this is, I guess you can call it a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler because it's just something that doesn't happen, something that I wanted to see happen, and I was hoping that we would see happen. I think when you finish that original Monsters Incorporated film, everybody has always wanted to see, at least I have always wanted to see, what happened after Sully opens that door and gets to see Boo again. Mike rebuilds the door for him. He puts it out there for Sully to open that door and go in there. Who knows? That could have been way into the future at some point. Maybe, it's a lot further into the future than we actually thought it was when that actually happens. But, they make it seem at the end of that movie that it's like pretty close to the events that happened in that original film. And so I always wanted to see what happened there. I always wanted to know that Sully was still connected to Boo in some way when that door is fixed by Mike and he's able to look inside and, he opens the door and you hear Boo call him Kitty one last time and the movie ends there. I thought it was a perfect ending to that original film. It's emotional. It puts a smile on your face, gets you kind of feeling like you're welling up. Your eyes get a little misty. And so I wanted to see that play out. I wanted to see if we would see any of that in this show. And it really is more the Tyler Tuskman show. This is very much his show. He is the main character, and the other characters of M.I.F.T are the main characters, and Mike, Sully, Celia, and the other returning characters from the previous films are more there to just kind of be characters that would be around during all this stuff. So they pop up here and there, but they're not necessarily characters that are really in a lot of ways pushing the narrative forward in a lot of ways. Sometimes they are there for certain moments like that, but ultimately they are not the driving force of the show, and so we never get to see that play out. We never get to get any sort of payoff to the very, very final moments of Monsters Inc. There's nothing that has to do with Boo in this season, and that was definitely something that saddened me just a little bit, but I can understand why they didn't choose to do that. So overall, as you can tell, I've enjoyed the show. I did think it was a cute, good, fun, silly time, and I do recommend it, but I think I have to put an asterisk on that and let you guys know it very much depends on you as an individual. Do you like Monsters Incorporated? Are you a fan of animated shows? Are you a fan of stuff that's very much for kids, but it's just like a family-friendly kind of thing? I think if you can say yes to all of those or any of those, then you may enjoy the show. But if anything that I've said to you or just the posters or anything about this show just doesn't intrigue you, then I don't think that you're going to be able to just jump into this show and enjoy it, especially if you've never seen the Monsters Incorporated films. You have to have at least seen the original to jump into this one and enjoy it as much as I did. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the craziest show. I liked it for what it was. It was silly, and I'm definitely interested in seeing the next season if they do that. But I do think that this season wrapped up in a great way, that if they ended it right here, I could totally understand that too. And ultimately, I enjoyed it for what it was. I give it a recommendation, but it totally depends on you as a viewer and what you're into and not into. Before I wrap this up, I want to talk about some of the other cast members in the show that play our main characters that are part of M.I.F.T alongside Tyler that he has to deal with throughout the course of the show. You have Mindy Kaling in here from The Office, who, is probably one of my least favorite characters in The Office, Kelly Kapoor, but she plays a pretty sweet role in this show called Val, and she is one of the monsters that's part of this M.I.F.T team. And yeah, her and Tyler have a shared relationship from the past. They knew each other kind of back in the past, but yeah, Val definitely holds on to the sliver of time that they knew each other way more than Tyler even remembers that they even knew each other. And so she's a bit annoying throughout the course of the show, but she does grow on you and she grows on Tyler, and I think they did a good job of allowing you as an audience to kind of feel for Val as Tyler starts to feel for Val over the course of the show. You also have Henley Winkler in this film, the Fonz classic actor, who plays the character of Fritz, who is the manager of M.I.F.T, this group of people who are part of the facilities team, and he's just that over-the-top, very bubbly character. I think we all know somebody that we've worked with, whether they were a manager, somebody that you worked with on the same level, or somebody who worked levels below you, whatever the case may be, who's just bubbly, excited, and either they get really sad very easily or they get very excited very easily as well. And so that's who his character is, and Henry Winkler is just such a likable actor. He does a great job with the voice acting, and pretty much everybody does a great job with the voice acting, but yeah, he was really good in this show for sure. Then you have Lana, who is not an actress I'm super familiar with, but she plays the character of Cutter, and Cutter was probably one of my favorite characters in the entire show. Very over-the-top, silly character who has this very crude kind of sensibility. She just feels like one of those characters who has seen a lot and experienced a lot, and I'm sure we can all kind of relate to going to a workplace where you work with somebody who's a little bit older, who has seen some stuff, and every time something happens or you do something, they have a story to kind of attach to that based on their history with said company or whatever they've done in their work career. And then last and definitely least for me was the character of Duncan, played by Lucas Neff, who is just that asshole character that it's just like, I didn't like this character. I didn't like this character. He was a bit of an asshat throughout the entire thing. He's constantly giving Tyler, our main character, a hard time, and he's just that character who is very arrogant and thinks that they're the smartest one in the room, that they know what to do, and consistently, prove that that is not the case throughout the course of the show, but consistently keeps that weasel asshat kind of vibe throughout the entirety of the show. He's always looking for trouble, trying to get others into trouble, and the only time you ever feel for him or sympathize for him is when he's done something so dumb that you are pitying him, and that the other characters in the show, who are much better characters, much better people, are seeing him, they pity him, and then they, try to include him or try to make him feel better. And in a lot of cases, that would usually be backhanded, because he would still kind kind of be a bit snarky or kind of a weasel after they would still do this nice thing for him. So he kind of reminded me a lot of a character from the High School Musical movies, since I've just recently been rewatching those for my buddy Jacob Martin's channel. Yeah, you have the character of Sharpay in those movies played by Ashley Tisdale, and very similar. She thinks that she knows everything. She thinks she's the smartest character. She thinks she's the coolest, most likable person in the room, and ultimately she's consistently having things happen to her that prove her wrong. And then, you know, all the main characters who are much nicer end up kind of coming to her aid in a very pity kind of way, and then, you know, that's the moment where you end up sympathizing for said character. So yeah, this has gone on for way longer than I intended to. I was hoping to do a quick like 5 to 7 minute review, and it's just kind of gone to this place. Overall, Monsters at Work is a silly good time. I think if you're a fan of Monsters Incorporated and of animated television, then you'll definitely have a good time with this show. Again, if everything that I've been saying about this show does not seem interesting to you in any way, shape, or form, you likely haven't gotten this far into the review, and if you have, well, thanks for sticking around, but this show may not be for you. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Definitely want to hear if you guys enjoyed this show. Did you not enjoy this show? Have you even seen it? Are you curious in checking it out after this review? Definitely want to hear any and all of your thoughts down below in the description box or in the comments section. Why do I keep doing that? I can't tell you how many times I say leave comments in the description box. That makes no sense. Why would I say that? But I do, and I cut it out most times, but I'm going to leave it in this time. Anyway, leave comments down below in the comments section. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.